Part 27. Fantasy, Me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 261. A few more days later. Emperor Mon, covered in blood and in a very embarrassed state, rushed out of the chaotic star sea. Behind him, the two great emperors joined forces to attack. Ling Xiao and Aoxian cooperated tacitly. Although they both became emperors not long ago, it was obviously very easy to deal with Emperor Mon. The three emperors fought all the way, chasing Emperor Mon to the sky and into the earth. Finally, the Emperor Tai appeared, and the battle was temporarily stopped. The Zixuan realm and Tianyuan realm have reached a rare period of peace. Within a short period of time, it is difficult to see another war. Because several great emperors in the Zixuan realm noticed something was wrong. It seemed that an extremely powerful force suddenly appeared in their own rear areas. Make them very afraid. Zixuan realm. A place before the ancient royal family. The formation is so vast that thousands of symbols flicker, each one like a small sun, shining in the void, blooming with dazzling brilliance. This is a tyrannical force. There was a glorious period in the past. Although it is not as good as it was in ancient times, it is still extraordinary and plays a decisive role in the Zixuan world. Today, a violent fluctuation swept over from the distant sky, like the resurrection of an ancient sky-splitting ferocious beast, covering the entire force. Boom, the formation shook. The entire formation seemed to be cracking, and cracks appeared. It is hard to imagine that someone could shatter a large formation by relying on momentum. Countless creatures were below the formation. With horror in their hearts and panic on their faces, the great formation left by their ancestors in the past had withstood countless disasters for them. It was indestructible, but it almost collapsed. Is this the arrival of a certain great emperor? In the Zixuan world, there are 4 great emperors in total. The first beings to become emperors ignore the secular world, and the remaining 3 great emperors have nothing to do with them. How could a great emperor suddenly knock on the door today? Is that senior kidding me? The ancient Feather clan. Among the ancient Yu clan, a great saint bravely rushed up to the sky, looked at the distant sky, bowed his hands and saluted with great respect. Although the visitor has not yet shown his face, he can suppress him simply by relying on his power. Shatter their mountain protecting formation. Obviously their identities are not simple. They cannot afford to offend them. The best thing to do now is to bow their heads and give in. Tread. A sound of cold footsteps sounded. A man wearing black iron clothes and surrounded by divine light, with overwhelming power, walked over step by step from a distance. His pace was very slow, but his speed was extremely fast. He has not yet come closer. The terrifying power of the great emperor moves up the 9 heavens and down the 9 skies, making the souls of countless ancient feather tribes burst into pieces. Like a knife scraping bones, every inch of skin will peel off. This is a kind of spirit that requires all the soul. The pain of destruction is hard to resist. Earthly immortal realm, Fuiyun Mountain. 6 bites were spat out. It was like the god's pardon, imprinted in the depths of the minds of countless creatures. The visitor took another step forward, and with a buzz sound, the strong wind surged, sweeping through the 9 days, splitting the space. Every wind was black, cutting through the void, scraping out chaos. At this moment, there is a kind of chill in the sky and on the ground. It's like a demon from hell, breaking through the cage, coming to this world, going to carry out the action of annihilation, rolling murderous aura, like hurricanes fill every corner of time. Land, earthly immortal realm. The great sage of the ancient feather tribe's scalp exploded. Huge waves set off in his heart. How is this possible? In a world that only exists in legends, how could a living being suddenly come across the border today? Moreover, as soon as he came, it was a great emperor. This is too sensational. The younger generation is too blind to recognize Mount Tai. I don't know that it is the emperor of the earthly immortal realm who is in front of me. If I have offended anything, I hope that the emperor will forgive me. The great sage of the ancient feather tribe had an apologetic smile on his face. Regardless of whether this great emperor came from the earthly immortal realm or not, as long as the great emperor's strength is here, they cannot afford to offend him. If they want to survive, it all depends on them. The other person's mood. Dare to ask. The great sage of the ancient feather clan had a humble attitude, slightly cupped his hands, and asked in a low voice, the emperor has come across the border, but there is something important? If there is anything the ancient feather clan can do to help, the emperor can just ask. Hundreds of thousands of creatures from the ancient Yu tribe are willing to serve the emperor. Very good. The emperor of Fuiyun Mountain nodded slightly, his eyes were still cold. His sleeves and robes brushed through the void, and dozens of figures appeared, each of them a pillar of Fuiyun Mountain. Their strength was at least above that of the Saint King. Such terrifying background makes people heartbroken. Trembling. Even the great sage of the ancient feather clan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He is worthy of being a person from the earthly immortal realm. With a wave of his hand, there are dozens of great sages and above. Looking at the entire Zixuan realm, there is no such thing as this kind of handwriting. Several forces can take it out. From today on, your entire clan must obey orders from Fuiyun Mountain and search for this person throughout the Zixuan realm. If there is any delay, your clan will no longer need to exist. The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain pointed out, and a figure condensed in the void. If you observe carefully, it is not difficult to recognize that this is exactly the appearance of Fang Han. Yes. The great sage of the ancient feather clan trembled, and remembered this figure in his mind. He shot out a ray of light from his hand, and all the creatures of the feather clan received the news immediately. Remember. The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain said coldly. You only have 10 days. This. The face of the great sage of the ancient Yu clan changed continuously, and his heart was filled with bitterness. No matter what, he never expected that his own tribe would be sitting at home, and disaster would come from the sky. Who is this provoking? When a great emperor comes to visit, who dares not to follow their orders? It takes 10 days as soon as you open your mouth. This is forcing this ancient feather clan to die. Even you, the emperor, can't find it? Can we, the ancient feather clan, find it within 10 days? He just thought about these words in his heart and never dared to say them out loud. At the moment, he could only hope that the other great emperors in his Zixuan realm would hear the news and come to the rescue of the Taikuyu clan. If the great emperors in the Purple Xian realm just sit back and watch, then they, the ancient feather clan, will be finished. The juniors understand. The great sage of the ancient feather clan helplessly handed over his hand. The ancient Yu clan will definitely do their best to find this person's whereabouts. After that, the great sage was about to return to his ancestral land and give complete instructions on this matter. But before he could return to the formation, he suddenly froze. His eyes widened, and a flash of light flashed in his eyes. A trace of unbelievable light. His eyes were fixed on looking at a place in the void. All he could see was there. At some point, a young figure appeared, with a handsome face, very cold, and an undisguised murderous intention lingering around him. He stood on the sky, his hair flying, holding a spear in his hand, with a holy power escaping. Little beast, did you come to our door yourself before we went to find you? Behind the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain, a Saint King level figure came out and said in a cold voice. Fang Han is just a young genius with a holy weapon in his hand. Facing other geniuses, he will undoubtedly be crushed. But for me, a Saint King, it is not enough. I can easily crush him to death with just one finger. As for why the other party appears silently, it is no longer important. The other party taking the initiative to send him to the door, and there is an emperor standing behind him. Even if there are some variables, the emperor must be able to deal with it. As long as Fang Han is captured, through soul searching, he can find the inheritance left by the distant ancestors of the Fang family. Then their Fuiyun Mountain will be the party that benefits the most among all the forces in the lower realm this time. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 262. The Remnants of the Fang Family. The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain spoke. His voice was very calm and cold. With a kind of indifference, he swept across the void and said indifferently, "You are much stupider than I think." In his opinion, Fang Han finally escaped with his life. Now he should hide with peace of mind instead of being so public. At present, how long has he been in Zixuan realm? Not even 10 days. 10 days is enough. What is he doing? Even if he takes the inheritance left by his ancestors in his hands, it will not be able to achieve a qualitative change at all. To send it to his door now is no different from seeking death. This little beast may have lost his mind. A great sage sneered. Fang Han is just a young prodigy. He is 100 times stronger, but he can't compare to the emperor's look. If he hides, Fuiyun Mountain may still be worried. After all, Fang Han has a good reputation in the earthly immortal world. Among the younger generation, there are only a few who can fight with him without losing. His future achievements are limitless. At least he can become an emperor. But now that he has come to his door, no matter how high his future achievements are, became a passing cloud. You are not bad luck. You have just stepped into the Zixuan realm and you have been protected by an emperor-level creature. If you think that you can challenge Fuiyun Mountain just like this, you are totally wrong. The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain said indifferently. He glanced sideways into the void, stretched out his hand, and with a flick of his finger, thousands of rays of brilliance bloomed. The sky collapsed, and the void was shattered. Countless brilliance turned into a piece of Wang Yang, shaking the world. In the brilliance, countless symbols rushed up, each like a small black sun, imprinted in the void, rippling out vast power. It seems that he came prepared. The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain, although he was shocked but not angry, seemed to have expected it, and said calmly, "I am afraid that an emperor-level formation cannot stop me. Just kill him." After that, he waved his hand casually, as if letting someone crush an ant. He didn't take Fang Han to heart at all. Right now, what he needs to pay attention to is an emperor who has been hiding in the dark. From his perspective, it is not difficult to see that this formation was not just set up. It had been set up a long time ago and was moved directly from another place with great magical powers. Although Zixuan realm is the lower realm, it can do this. A person with the first step is at least a being who is proficient in formations. This kind of emperor may not have high frontal combat power. But if he is allowed to rely on the power of the formation, he can still cause some trouble for himself. Yes. The Saint King who spoke just now smiled cruelly. He turned into a stream of light and rushed towards Fang Han. He was in mid-air, and his whole body was burning with energy and blood. Even the position of the Tianling guy was spraying out a terrifying sea of energy and blood. It was like a sea of energy and blood. Wang Yang, the waves are turbulent and terrifying. The peak cultivation level of the Saint King is undoubtedly revealed. Unparalleled strength. Boom. He raised his hand and struck out a palm. Various runes were intertwined in his palm, densely packed like raindrops, shining with dazzling brilliance and turning into a mountain. From the sky, rumbling and suppressing came down. The runes were like a sea, a vast expanse, an ancient sacred mountain, falling from the sky. The sun, moon, and stars are swirling around, which is very shocking. It has the momentum to collapse the sky. It's time for Fuiyun Mountain to pay the price for everything before. A jade pendant appeared in Fang Han's hand, its surface glowed, and an illusory figure walked out of it, as if it had crossed an eternal river. It became one with Fang Han. Buzz. There was a soft cry. In an instant, Fang Han's whole body glowed, and there were various visions. He was so powerful that he could not compete with him. His thick black hair was scattered, and his eyes were like electricity, cold and sharp. Although his appearance was still that of Fang Han, his aura was completely different. It is as if he is an unparalleled emperor who has stepped out of the ages. He exudes a majestic atmosphere with every move he makes. Not good. Emperor Fuianshan's expression changed and he shouted coldly, "Quickly retreat." He reacted very quickly. As soon as the jade pendant appeared in Fang Han's hand, something bad came into his heart, but his reminder was still too late. Boom! Fang Han took a step forward, proud of his independence, and fell down, stepping on the Saint King. With a bang, the Saint King was crushed by force. The power of the Emperor was indescribable and stern. The purple mystic realm shocks the world, makes people tremble with fear, and makes their hearts and minds throb. How can you become emperor? The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain frowned and looked at Fang Han unblinkingly, trying to see through him inside and out, but he was disappointed. Fang Han's strength seemed to be innate. He merged with him in one body. This is unbelievable. How old is Fang Han? He is very tall, that is, he is only about 200 years old. No one denies his talent, but his current strength has shattered the views of countless people. Such a young man, there is absolutely no way he can become emperor. He must have used some special method, but this method is beyond his understanding. Dead people don't need to know too much. Fang Han took the next step, and the aura on his body seemed to have no end. It had improved a lot again. If he had just become emperor just now. At this moment, the aura on his body seemed to be that of an ancient emperor who had been emperor for countless years. It shattered countless stars and caused half of the star field to dim quickly. The middle period of the great emperor. The emperor of Fuiyun Mountain waved his hand to block the breath. If he hadn't taken action, it is estimated that the people behind him would have been crushed into powder in an instant. Even the great sage would not be able to last for one breath. Wrong. Fang Han spat out two words indifferently. Another step fell. The momentum more than doubled again, like a volcano erupting, sweeping across the 9 levels of the sky, with power like the Tianhe bursting its banks, so mighty that it shook the entire Zixuan realm. Boom! 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 Behind the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain, a puff of blood mist bloomed. These saint kings and great saints turned into powder without even a scream. There were only storage rings. They were killed by an invisible palm. Secretly put it into the bag. Seeing this scene, the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain's eyes were splitting. He did not expect that Fang Han seemed to have been reborn in less than 10 days. Even if he was taken away by an emperor, it's impossible for him to go so far as to defy heaven. So much so that he could ignore a great emperor in the dark. Have you obtained the inheritance left by Suanmo? The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain said in a deep voice. Never. Fang Han's expression did not change, he still took one step forward, and his aura rose again. The peak of the Emperor. In the sky, the situation changed. An existence at the peak of the Emperor, even if he does nothing, one thought can shatter countless star fields. Instantly exterminate billions of living beings. What exactly do you get? The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain looked at Fang Han not far away, and his heart felt cold. In 10 days, he achieved the peak strength of the Emperor. It is too unbelievable. I'm afraid. This Fang Han has found a great opportunity that does not belong to the inheritance of a true immortal. No. To a certain extent, the opportunity given to Fang Han is more precious than the inheritance of a true immortal, because even with the inheritance of a true immortal, it is impossible for a person to reach the peak of the great emperor in a short period of time. There was a flash of salivation in his eyes, which quickly turned into fear. Although he has been an emperor for a long time, he is still considered the best among all the great emperors. But that's about it. Facing a powerful man at the peak of the great emperor, he would definitely lose, with no chance of winning. Plus, there was an emperor next to him who was eyeing him. Once they fight, they will definitely die. Walk. The emperor of Fuiyun Mountain thought of this. Without any hesitation, he turned around and waved out a palm, creating a space crack, wanting to step into it and leave. You just want to leave now, don't you think it's too late? Fang Han said indifferently. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 263. Kill. Fang Han shouted loudly. Thousands of stars roared down. The spear in his hand glowed. The holy level weapon could not withstand the power of the emperor level. Before it was smashed out, there were cracks in it. Although the spear was broken, it was broken. Gathered together by the true essence, it emits thousands of rays of light, its power is peerless and terrifying, and everyone will be shocked. Looking from a distance, a spear stands between heaven and earth, like a pillar supporting the sky, rumbling down. How could it be so strong? The emperor of Fuiyun Mountain made seals with both hands, activating the power of rules. A series of Milky Ways hung from the sky, turning into a sky curtain, blocking the front. The sky curtain had just formed. It was convenient for the spears to collide. Boom! A loud noise was heard, and the sound spread for hundreds of millions of miles. Countless creatures in the star field heard this deafening sound. They all raised their heads and looked in the direction of the sound. All they saw was a terrifying wave. The aftermath swept across all directions. It flattened a large area of stars. A big hole seemed to appear in the sky, and it darkened completely. All the stars in it disintegrated immediately and turned into powder. There is actually a fight between the emperors. Are these the two great emperors? Is it the Thai emperor? Or Emperor Mon? It's not Emperor Mon. It is rumored that Emperor Mon has broken into the Tianyuan world at this moment. It should be an old monster in a restricted area somewhere who has taken action. Have you forgotten? Some time ago, some creatures from the immortal world crossed over and enslaved many forces. It is probably that a certain emperor couldn't see it, so he took action. I don't rule out this possibility. Countless people were talking about it, with curiosity in their eyes. They were too far away from the battlefield. While they were curious, they were also extremely happy. Fortunately, these two great emperors did not choose the battlefield in their own star field. Otherwise, I don't know how many living beings will suffer from unreasonable disasters. Boom! The war broke out. Fang Han and the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain entered a state of intense fighting as soon as they fought. All kinds of taboo magic techniques appeared one after another, and they fought thousands of times in an instant. Fang Han knew that he could not fight for a long time, and the longer the time dragged on, for himself, it would be even more unfavorable. But the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain was shocked. He couldn't figure out why Fang Han was so desperate. They had just fought and both of them were already injured. If it weren't for Fang Han's inability to fully understand the Emperor's strength, take control, he might have been hit hard now. Come to death. Fang Han shouted, and the spear in his hand swept out, thousands of rays of light burst out, piercing the void, and the stars exploded in the void. Puff. The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain spit out a mouthful of blood as if he had been hit hard. His arms made a loud banging sound, and then turned into a cloud of blood mist. He himself flew hundreds of thousands of miles upside down and hit the edge of the formation. Hateful. He glanced at the formation in the void, and his face turned pale. If it weren't for the existence of the formation, he would have run away long ago, but there happened to be a formation that blocked the way, leaving him with no choice but to fight Fang Han head-on. And Fang Han is like a madman again. Even if his tricks are not mysterious, but with the support of the Emperor's peak strength, he is not something he can fight head-on. Click. The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain shot his other hand into the void, and the arm turned into blood mist, gathered in the void, and recondensed on the wound. In an instant, the bones grew, the wound glowed, and a brand new arm grew out. Does a junior dare to lord it over this emperor? The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain raised his hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were gloomy, and his whole body was covered with a layer of frost. One of his arms was broken, which was a great shame. Once upon a time, he was also a giant in the earthly immortal world, and was admired by countless people. I don't dare to be negligent. It is difficult to find an opponent among the same level, but now I am severely injured by a junior. This is simply unimaginable. It is simply more uncomfortable than killing him, not only the physical pain, but also the shame of the soul. Almost going crazy. Ah! The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain roared and resisted fiercely, trying to break out of the formation, but was blocked by Fang Han. The battle between the two reached an extremely tragic level. His flesh and blood were all cracked, his bones were white and blood was dripping. Still can't take a step out of the formation. Your strength cannot last for too long, and you will definitely die in the end in a deadly battle with this emperor. The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain shouted loudly. Kill you, that's enough. Fang Han was indifferent. There was nothing in his hand. The holy spear just now had broken into pieces, but now he held it with one hand, and countless brilliance came together, condensing into a spear with shining metallic luster. Whoosh! The spear shot out and turned into a stream of light in the void. It was as fast as lightning and made a rumbling roar. It was extremely bright and dazzling. This spear was like a throw from the gods. It was unstoppable and indestructible. Every living thing would be frightened by it. Especially the spear. However, the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain, who was the first to bear the brunt, was even more frightened when he saw this scene. Not long ago, he had subdued an ancient royal family with the power of one person. Not long after this, he was seriously injured and dying. Seeing the spear kill come, he was unwilling to give in, and subconsciously raised the imperial weapon in his hand, completely instinctively resisting, to block this fatal blow. Clang! The emperor's soldiers flew away. The spear's divine light and surging divine power penetrated the void, piercing the Fuiyun Mountain emperor, flying him backwards for hundreds of thousands of miles, and nailed him to the edge of the formation. A great emperor was nailed to the void, the emperor's blood flew everywhere, and the cry of pain spread throughout the void. Everyone watching the battle was palpitated by it. Among them were the great emperors of Zixuanja, including Emperor Tai and Emperor Tiankai. After they rescued Emperor Moun, they rushed here immediately, but they did not expect to see such a scene. There was no sound at the scene. The spear tip was dripping with blood, which was shocking. It was inserted into the void, and the brilliance of the spear was condensed. The body was trembling slightly, flashing with brilliance, suppressing a great emperor below. Blood flowed along the spear shaft, dyeing the sky red. This sight sent chills down the spines of countless creatures, and a cold air rushed straight from the soles of their feet. Skull! It was too shocking. An emperor was suppressed in the sky. It seemed that the two emperors were joining forces to attack, but in fact only one emperor was taking action. The other was just setting up a formation. Fang Han was in the void. Walking forward step by step, neither fast nor slow, as if stepping on the hearts of countless people, making their hearts beat with the steps. This is a powerful deterrent, and the depressing atmosphere makes people almost suffocated. look. When Fang Han came over, Emperor Fuinshan couldn't hold back any longer. He shouted. No. You can't kill me. Behind me is Fuiyun Mountain. If you kill this emperor, Fuiyun Mountain will definitely settle with you. Even if you gain the power of the great emperor, how can you stop Fuiyun Mountain from being liquidated? Is it? Fang Han's face remained unchanged. He walked up to the emperor of Fuiyun Mountain, stretched out one hand, held the spear, and said coldly. When the war started with the Fang clan in Fuiyun Mountain, both sides were already fighting to the death. Killing you today is just some of the interest I took back in advance. When I return to the immortal world, there will be no need for Fuiyun Mountain to exist. As soon as he finished speaking, the spear trembled and emitted a dazzling brilliance. A power that could tear the universe apart suddenly exploded and spread out in all directions. No. The Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain finally let out a scream. The Emperor's body collapsed and turned into blood mist. Just as a divine light flew out of the body, a huge hand stretched out and suppressed it directly. Then, this big hand, with its remaining power, extended into the depths of the void and grabbed out the imperial soldiers that had been sent flying. According to the previous transaction, the storage ring belongs to you, and his imperial weapon and soul belong to me. Sorry for bothering you, Senior. Fang Han's expression remained unchanged, and he raised his hands to the void. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 264. Secretly. Meng Qingzi happily put away an emperor soul and an emperor weapon. This time, the trip was not in vain, and I made a lot of money. Next time I go to Tianji Tower, I can almost buy a piece of divine gold. Meng Qingzi thought in his mind. He is the great emperor who came with Fang Han. With Fang Han's strength, even with the great sage following him and the news from the Tianji Tower, it is not easy to cross the Zixuan realm. After all, the purple mystic realm is not small. No matter how fast a great sage flies, if he wants to get from one end to the other, he will not be able to cross in just a few decades. A few decades. Wait until Fang Han arrives here. The daylilies were cold. So. Meng Qingzi saw the opportunity, pushed from behind, and quickly sent Fang Han here. He was the one who made the move. He only needed to set up a formation. Rely on Fang Han with his strength, it is easy to defeat an emperor, but if he wants to run away, it doesn't matter if he persists for a month or two. And the jade pendant in Fang Han's hand was used up 3 times. It only lasted 3 hours. It was not enough to kill him. An emperor. He saw this opportunity and chose to cooperate with Fang Han. The other party took revenge and picked up an emperor's storage ring for free. And he, Zibo, picked up an imperial weapon and added a great emperor soul. If it is refined, one can make great progress in cultivation in the future with little effort. If you do this several times, it will be difficult for you not to get rich. Your opportunity is very precious. There are only 5/4 of an hour left. Who are you going to deal with next? Meng Qingzi asked through a message. Fang Han took action to kill, and he set up a formation to stop him. The responsibility is all on the other party, and he got the advantage in vain. If such a good opportunity is let go in vain, then it will not be him, Meng Qingzi. Escape to the immortal palace. Fang Han didn't hesitate at all, and responded with 4 words in his mind. The people who came from the lower realm of the escaped immortal palace are not far from here. They are in the same spirit as Fuiyun Mountain, and they are even looking for power. At this moment, for them it's a good opportunity to take action. What are you waiting for? Meng Qingzi said quickly with fiery eyes. Let's go. Fang Han nodded. The 2 people turned around at the same time, took 1 step forward, and disappeared in an instant. After they left for a breath. On the sky, several stalwart figures appeared. Their figures were hazy, shrouded in the mist of chaos. None of them showed their true appearance, but there was a terrifying aura surrounding them. They were either domineering, mighty, or floating out of the dust. Everyone looked at the battlefield just now and remained silent. After a long time, a figure like a god and demon, surrounded by golden blood, with flowing hair and sharp eyes, has an imperial majesty that suppresses Tianyu. He spoke softly. Those who took action were all from the earthly immortal realm. Good. A golden creature stood in the void, with lightning and thunder all around, and the sky exploding, as if it was going to wipe out all directions. He said in a cold voice, "The creatures in the earthly immortal realm are a little arrogant. The space passage is cut off and they don't know when it will be restored. These people need to be beaten. If, can they not go back?" Someone spoke. He was surrounded by the power of the extreme, possessing unparalleled divine power. Every move he made, the void was turbulent. The void he was in was distorting, as if eternity was about to be shattered. At the moment, all the creatures who dared to come to the battlefield to watch were all great emperors. Although they are afraid of the earthly immortal realm, they are definitely not afraid of the earthly immortal realm. People are taking action in their own backyard. How can they sit back and ignore it? If the space passage of the earthly immortal realm is still there, they may be a little more afraid. But the space passage, it's broken. Then there's no need to coddle the other person. Then kill them all. A great emperor was filled with murderous intent, and a vast sea of blood emerged under his feet, with gods and demons wailing in it. This is an ancient emperor who has lived for an unknown number of years and has been sleeping in the restricted area. Today, he was awakened by the fight between two great emperors. Seeing the ruined world, I felt very dissatisfied. Creatures from other worlds actually fought in their own world and crippled the entire star field, which also affected many other star fields. As a result, the Zixuan world was seriously injured. How can they not be angry? Let's take a long-term view. The earthly immortal realm and the Zixuan realm have just lost contact. No one can say for sure what will happen in the future. An old figure spoke. He hasn't finished speaking yet. Boom. A loud noise came out. A sky-shaking roar came from the star field next door. Two more emperors hit the sky. The emperor's blood splashed in all directions, shaking most of the Zixuan realm. Countless people watched the fight. The creatures. They were all terrified, and no one knew whether it would be their turn to be in the star field next. Isn't it over? In the Zixuan realm, a great emperor said angrily. It's just a beating once, and now it's a second time. This means they don't want to give up until the Zixuan realm is completely crippled. Could it be that these creatures from the earthly immortal realm are a spy sent by Tianyuan realm? At the same time, earthly immortal realm. Floating Cloud Mountain. This is a tall and majestic sacred mountain, 1 million feet high, towering above the clouds, vast and boundless, like a continent floating in the void. The top of Mount Kailash. Immortal energy is steaming, there are thousands of divine clouds, and countless palaces and buildings are looming in the clouds and mist, very misty, like a fairyland outside the world. In the middle, in a magnificent palace, an old man in white suddenly opened his eyes, his expression changed dramatically, and he exclaimed, "Not good. What happened to the mountain owner?" An elder, sitting cross-legged next to him, asked softly with an air of immortality. "The ancestor is in big trouble. I feel that his aura is rapidly weakening, and even his consciousness seems to be falling into a deep sleep." The master of Fuiyun Mountain looked gloomy, looked towards the direction of Yugzu Palace, and said in a cold voice, "Could it be that Yugzu Palace is doing something?" The news of the fragmentation of the space channel has spread throughout the earthly immortal realm. Every force that sent people to the lower realm is panicked, for fear of getting some bad news. Perhaps a certain great emperor from the Zixuan realm broke the space passage. The mountain owner does not have to worry. With the strength of the ancestor of Yugzu Palace, I think I can open a new one soon. The elder said in a comforting voice. Although he said this, his face was not good looking. His ancestor's breath was weak and his consciousness was about to fall asleep. It was obvious that he had encountered a formidable enemy. He might have been severely injured at the moment, and even the point where the injury cannot be recovered. Otherwise, why bother sleeping consciously? Which emperor can break the space channel opened by a supreme immortal? The master of Fuiyun Mountain said coldly. Until now, there has been no movement. Either a huge change has occurred in the Zixuan realm, and even a supreme true immortal cannot cope with it, or the Yugzu Palace has other conspiracies and wants to trap everyone in the Zixuan realm. A situation that even a supreme true immortal could not handle was automatically ignored by the master of Fuiyun Mountain. Zixuan realm is a small world, and the great emperor is the pinnacle. They also sent a great emperor down, which can be said to be from the Zixuan realm. Top combat power. Almost no one dares to offend. It is not an exaggeration to run rampant in Zixuan realm. How can those natives threaten their ancestors? Remove this possibility. Then there is only the last possibility left. Yugzu Palace is playing a conspiracy, deliberately sealed the space passage by himself, not only ruining countless outstanding geniuses, but also monopolizing the inheritance of the Fang family. What a vicious method! The master of Fuiyun Mountain said in a cold voice. His eyes flashed with cold light, and the murderous intention in his heart rushed into the night. He, Fuiyun Mountain, worked hard to destroy the Fang clan. However, before he could swallow the biggest fruit, he was killed by Yugzu Palace. It was taken away. If you can swallow this kind of breath, it will be a ghost. Junior brother, go and inform the reclusive Immortal Palace and Taigzu Mountain, and tell them Yugzu Palace's little abacus. Our three major forces came together to ask for someone. If the other party refused to let him go, they would spread the news throughout the earthly immortal realm. I want to see if a supreme true immortal in his Yugzu Palace can withstand the anger of the entire earthly immortal realm. The master of Fuiyun Mountain said in a cold voice. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 265. Zixuan Realm. The ancestral land of the human race. On the undulating land, palaces are scattered here and there, interspersed with broken walls and ruins. In some places, weeds have even grown, making it very desolate. This palace occupies a large area. From the solid foundation, we can see the grandeur of this palace in the past. The immortals in this world are too downtrodden. In a large hall, a man in white clothes, with dragon patterns embroidered on his sleeves, sat quietly, with long eyes, holding a folding fan in one hand and tapping the armrest with the other, frowning. His white clothes are as white as snow, and he is spotless. His facial features are clear and elegant. As if covered with a layer of fog, his expression was dull, and there was a hint of anger in his words. Holy Son, this is a human race, not an immortal race. Behind the man in white, a great saint-level figure shook his head slightly and said. He glanced at the entire ancestral land of the human race in the Zixuan realm and sighed softly. This ethnic group is inextricably related to the immortal tribe in the earthly immortal realm. It can be said that they come from the same origin. The only difference is that in the earthly immortal world, the immortal race has ruled for eternity, and no race can compete with them. However, the human race in the purple Xian realm is extremely weak. Looking at the entire ethnic group, the most strong man is actually a saint at the peak of his existence. Not even a saint king. That's it. He is just a saint sitting in charge. And he has reached the point of dying. His life is like a candle in the wind, which will be extinguished at any time. There are not even a few saint-level figures to be found. It seems that the inheritance of the human race has been interrupted. The total number of one ethnic group is only tens of thousands. It is hard for people to believe that such a weak ethnic group is actually the same as their fairy tribe. Races from the same origin. A slightly larger force can easily completely destroy the entire human race. But the person behind the man in white pondered for a moment and said softly, the human race in the Zixuan realm was once very powerful in ancient times. For example, the true immortal Suanmo who entered the earthly immortal realm was born from the human race. It's a pity that the later human race had ambitions that did not match their strength. They wanted to rule the entire Zixuan realm, but they were resisted by all races. Finally ended up like this. After all, it's also your own fault. The voice of the speaker was cold. He had no sympathy. He thought that he was from the fairy race, and that he was just a race with the same appearance as the human race, but in essence, they were not the same race. After all, no one wanted to be with such a weak person. It is related to the ethnic group. Even if their ancestors had great achievements, it is still the achievements of their ancestors and has nothing to do with future generations. Holy Son, we came to the lower realm this time for the inheritance of the Fang family. We need a strong force to better collect information. Right now, this human race. The person who spoke looked at a group of human beings in shabby clothes and hopeful faces outside the main hall, and said lightly, they have no value. Since they were collecting information. The stronger the force, the faster it can collect. The human race has only one saint at the moment, and even the holy lords can't come up with a few. They are expected to collect information, let alone the entire Zixuan realm, whether they can collect information about a star field. All in between. If I and others stay here, they will be like deaf and blind people. When they collect Fang Han's whereabouts, I am afraid that all the true immortal inheritance will be owned. A cold word. There is no dissimulation. He doesn't need to hide it, because he himself is a powerful quasi-emperor. He is aloof and overlooks hundreds of millions of creatures. For a human race that is so weak that only one saint sits in charge. No need to care what they think. Outside the main hall. An old saint, one sleeve of his robe was floating in the air, and his only remaining arm was leaning on a cane. His old eyes fell on the man in white in front of him. The corners of his mouth opened, but eventually it turned into a sigh. This group of people fell from the sky a few days ago and came to the human race. Different from those ethnic groups that have always oppressed the human race in the past, these people are real human races. Originally, the entire human race thought that this was the arrival of the human race from the Tianyuan realm. Come and take them to Tianyuan realm. After all, news of the war between the Zixuan realm and the Tianyuan realm spread throughout the two realms. Although the human race is weak, they also know that the human race in the Tianyuan world is very strong and occupies half of a huge world. If there are creatures from the Tianyuan world to take them over, it is undoubtedly a great thing. But it's a pity. Those who came were not people from the Tianyuan realm, but immortals from the earthly immortal realm. Although these so-called immortals did not bully them, their indifferent attitude still chilled them. These creatures did not regard them as beings of the same race. I came here just out of curiosity at most. When the curiosity is over, it will naturally leave. It comes down to it. People don't have much sympathy for the human race, and they have never treated them as members of the same race. Leave them a skill and some elixirs. The man in white said softly. This. The middle-aged man behind him changed his expression and said quickly, Holy Son, this is against the rules. The cultivation methods of my Yugzu palace are never allowed to be spread to outsiders. If the ancestor knows about it, he can track it down. I'll carry it. The man in white glanced at the outside human race, his eyes deep and calm. In his opinion, the current human race is very weak, and giving them a skill cannot change the status quo. There are only tens of thousands of people in total. Follow compared with the huge ethnic group that can easily reach hundreds of millions, it is like a grain of sand in the ocean. Unless they can go to another world, otherwise, this ethnic group will not be able to rise in this life. Moreover, although he is not a creature from the purple mystic realm, he can still see. It turns out that the Zixuan realm has very strict control over the human race, and the surrounding ethnic groups that bully the human race have their own purposes. They deliberately prevent the human race from rising. After all, the human race has only tens of thousands of people, and there is only one saint. How much profit can be squeezed out? They suppressed them because the shadow left by the human race on the Zixuan realm was too great. Countless years later, they still can't forget the battle in the past. The reason why they will not destroy the human race is simply to treat them as a cherished ethnic group, just in case. If it is destroyed, this ethnic group will completely disappear from the Zixuan realm. In the future, it will be told to future generations that there was once an extremely powerful human race in the Zixuan realm, and future generations will not be able to imagine what the human race looked like. Yes. The middle-aged man had no choice but to turn his palm, and a skill and 2 bottles of elixir appeared in his palm. He waved his palm. The skill and elixir flew out and fell into the hands of the leading saint. This, it's too expensive, old man, cannot accept. The old saint's palms were trembling. He looked at the technique in front of him, a trace of desire flashed in his eyes, but after pondering for a long time, he still pushed it out and said in a deep voice, "This is a great saint-level technique. Although it cannot make the human race rise, as long as a great sage appears, the human race can gain a firm foothold. Its significance is even greater than giving an imperial weapon to the human race. I am not giving it to you, but to the human race behind you." The man in white said softly. "This." The old saint stiffened and looked at the clansman behind him. He bowed tremblingly and said with tears of gratitude, "Little old man, on behalf of the 58,617 clansmen of the human clan, thank you so much for your benefactor." The man in white nodded and accepted the gift. The benefactor comes from the earthly immortal realm, so he must not know much about the Zixuan realm. The old man has a piece of news that he is willing to tell the benefactor. The old saint said in a deep voice, "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning." Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 266. Information. The man in white looked unchanged and asked, "What's the news?" The other party used the word news instead of the word secret. He already had some guesses in his mind. Maybe the news is of little value. It's also possible the entire Zixuan world will know about it. They don't know because they just learned from the ground. They just crossed over from the fairy world. Instead of asking others, someone told them in advance, which saved them a lot of effort. It's about the Zixuan realm and the Tianyuan realm. The old saint of the human race glanced at the people in front of him, and he breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that everyone had interesting expressions on their faces. These people should have just crossed over. For the Purple Xian realm and Tianyuan realm, the news of the ongoing war was not yet clear. He organized his thoughts and said in a hoarse voice, "Some time ago, Emperor Mon of the Zixuan realm opened a space channel and wanted to conquer the Tianyuan realm. The war between the two worlds begins, and hundreds of millions of creatures join the battlefield. The old man wants to remind his benefactor not to get involved, because some great emperors have already taken action. If you get involved rashly, it may be difficult to escape." And not long ago, a great emperor of the Tianyuan realm became enlightened in the Suanmo star territory. As a result, the strength of the Tianyuan realm increased greatly. There was even a mysterious master of Tianji who severely injured 3 emperors with one punch. From this point of view, the water in Tianyuan realm is very deep. After the old saint finished speaking tremblingly, his eyes looked at the man in white. The news he said was indeed not a secret. It had almost spread throughout the entire Zixuan realm, and every force knew it. Especially in the Zixuan realm. The emperor, they know more, but no one will tell them. What he said today also reminded them not to join the battle without seeing the situation clearly. It would be better if they went against the Zixuan realm. But if you go against the Tianyuan realm, you will definitely end up miserable. At least. In the Zixuan realm, until now, there is no one who can compete with the Tianji building master. Tianyuan world. The man in white murmured, and then recited the words Tianji Luzu in his heart. He silently recorded the name in his mind. The space channel behind him had been broken. They received the news immediately. Yugzu, the influence of Yugzu Palace cannot penetrate. He is like a rootless duckweed in Zixuan realm. It is a good thing to know which side is not easy to provoke. As for the war between the two realms, everyone in Yugzu Palace, it's no surprise. In the history of the earthly immortal world, we have also experienced such things, but every world they invaded was wiped out by them. Some worlds were refined. Some worlds were enslaved by them. The purple Xian world and the earthly immortal world, in their eyes, the war was just a small fight. On the contrary, the four-word Suanmo star territory made everyone in Yugzu Palace feel a jump in their hearts. If I and others remember correctly, Fang's the distant ancestor of the clan. His name is Ancient Immortal Suanmo, and he comes from the Zixuan realm. If you say that Suanmo star territory has no connection with Ancient Immortal Suanmo, they won't believe it even if I beat them to death. Son. The quasi-emperor behind the man in white looked excited and spoke quickly. Just after entering the lower world, it is possible to find the inheritance of a true immortal. It is impossible not to be excited. It is quite a feeling that there is no place to find after wearing iron shoes, and it takes no effort at all. Not urgent. The man in white raised his hand, his black hair fluttering, and he had an aura of being out of the world. He said calmly, if the inheritance of the true immortal is in the Suanmo star territory, I'm afraid it has long been taken away by the great emperors of Zixuan realm. If my guess is correct, this Suanmo star territory should be only a small part of the sphere of influence controlled by that supreme being in the past. So what should we do now? The quasi-emperor frowned and spoke. Although the man in white in front of him is his junior, his qualifications are too amazing. Even the ancestor of Yugzu Palace once said that he has the appearance of a true immortal. With these words, Saint, as long as I don't perish, becoming an immortal is almost certain. Wait. The man in white uttered one word. He glanced at the void, turned around, looked at the old saint and said, just now you said that there was a great emperor who became enlightened in the Suanmo star territory. When did this happen? Perhaps, 9 days ago. The old saint thought for a while and said aloud. 9 days ago. The man in white's eyes flashed, and a smile showed on his face that he was sure of victory. This time. It's actually the right time. Calculated according to the days. 9 days ago should be the time when Fang Han crossed over from the earthly immortal realm. If he guessed correctly, Fang Han has now fallen into the hands of the newly enlightened emperor. As for Fang Han's death, he never thought about it. Fang Han, with the hope of the rise of the Fang family, escaped the encirclement of the three major forces. Kill, you finally came to Zixuan realm with great difficulty. How could you die so easily? Let's go to Tianyuan world. The man in white said softly. The man who became the emperor is the great emperor of Tianyuan realm. If he wants to find Fang Han, he may have to go to Tianyuan realm. Yes. The quasi-emperor handed over his hand. He was about to give the order to go down and prepare the chariot. The next moment, a mighty aura surged, and two completely different auras of the emperors clashed in the sky, and the roar suppressed the stars. The scene. Extremely tragic. It makes people's hearts palpitate. It's the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain. The middle-aged man said. He looked at the two great emperors who were fighting, a trace of confusion flashed in his eyes, and said the person fighting him, I sensed a trace of Fang's kung fu. Fang. The man in white looked thoughtful in his eyes. In the earthly immortal world, almost all the Fang family members have perished. Only Fang Han and his protectors ran out. How could a great emperor appear here? Where did the great emperor come from? Fang Han is a young man whose strength is not as good as him, so he can be excluded. As for Fang Han's protector, he is just a great sage. Before the lower realm, he had been seriously injured, and it is also impossible to be short-term. Time becomes emperor. Could it be that the Fang clan still has a branch in the Zixuan world? The man in white was puzzled. He glanced at the human race not far away. The ancestor of Fang Han was from the human race. If the human race is still strong, the descendants left by Zhenxian Suanmo in the Zixuan realm may still have some strength. But the human race has long since declined. It is impossible for the descendants of Emperor Suanmo to still exist. If he existed, how could he watch the human race fall into this situation? A little weird. The man in white was puzzled. He shook his head and looked at the battlefield. Soon after, he saw that the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain was crucified in the void. This scene made him feel a little heavier. A great emperor fall. The aftermath of this incident will not only affect the Zixuan realm. I am afraid that a major earthquake will also occur in the earthly immortal realm. The space passage is broken, and the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain has fallen here. Although they know the truth, they cannot spread it at all. And countless people in the earthly immortal world are kept in the dark. I am afraid that the next situation in Yugzu Palace will not be easy to deal with. It seems that we need to find the true immortal inheritance as soon as possible and then find a way to go back. The man in white thought in his mind. He raised his steps, stepped onto the chariot, and said softly. Head to Tianyuan world. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 267. More than a month has passed. Where the Zixuan realm and the Tianyuan realm are connected, wars break out frequently. Many people cross the border. Among them, there are many creatures who came from the earthly immortal realm and traveled hundreds of millions of miles from the Zixuan realm to the Tianyuan realm. Each of these people has their own means. Got it? Some time ago, there is news that a quasi-emperor has become an emperor in the Suanmo star territory. One person becoming emperor is not a small piece of news, it is enough to cause an uproar. As long as the time of Fang Han's lower realm is linked, it is not difficult to deduce. At first, the connection between the person who became the emperor in the Suanmo star region and Fang Han. At this time, many people quickly rushed to Tianyuan realm. I want to find out who the person who became the emperor in the Zixuan realm was. But what they didn't expect was, in the Tianyuan world, after asking for a long time, some ordinary monks had no idea who crossed the world and became the emperor in the Zixuan world. Most cultivators were extremely excited when they learned that someone from their own world had become an emperor in another world. Instead, they asked them if they knew who it was. This way, many people in the Earth immortal world were confused. What's going on? In your world, there is a person who became emperor in the Zixuan realm, but you, the beings in the Tianyuan realm, did not get the news immediately? Is it possible that you don't even know that there is an extra emperor? It's not their fault either. After Meng Qingzi became emperor, he was not as public as the Dragon Emperor. He just brought Fang Han to Dawang City in a low-key manner, and watched the news of Fang Han's purchase in the Tianji Tower. Then he returned to the Zixuan realm and stirred up wind and rain. After he became emperor, he stayed in the Tianyuan world for less than 2 hours. Didn't move around the Tianyuan world. If people from the outside world knew that Menqingzi became emperor, then they would be in trouble. Who is the person who becomes the emperor? In a gorgeous jade car, a man in white was sitting upright. He frowned and held a jade slip in his hand. There was a list recorded in it. It was called the Crown Prince list. As the saying goes, do as the Romans do. They came to Tianyuan realm. I didn't find out anything else, but the three words Tianji Tower are like thunder. Almost everyone has a copy of this list of emperors. It is difficult for them not to know. In the list of emperors, there is only the Dragon Emperor ranked 4th. He surpassed the three people in front and became the emperor first, and then another quasi-emperor came up automatically. The Dragon Emperor did become emperor in the Zixuan realm. But the place where he became the emperor was also not a secret in the Zixuan realm. He was not there at all. Suanmo Star territory. In other words, there is another person whose name is not on the list of emperors. He has surpassed other quasi-emperors. After hiding it from everyone, he suddenly became an emperor and suddenly became an emperor. This person cannot be found. Then trying to find Fang Han is tantamount to wishful thinking. Son. The middle-aged quasi-emperor next to the man in white was also holding the jade slip. He lowered his head and thought, you said that the existence that fought against the emperor of Fuiyun Mountain before was related to Fang Han. The opponent has the aura of the Fang clan on his body, which cannot be hidden at all. Once he takes action, all his trump cards will be exposed. Of course. It cannot be ruled out that the emperor who made the move deliberately used the aura of the Fang clan. Magical powers to confuse their vision. Do you suspect that person is Fang Han? The man in white said coldly. This speculation is a bit unbelievable. Fang Han is going against the sky, is it possible that he suddenly becomes the emperor? It's a bit too far-fetched. No. The middle-aged quasi-emperor shook his head and said, I suspect that he has an unexplained relationship with the Fang family. After all, as soon as he took action, he took the initiative to target Fuiyun Mountain, the Escape Palace and Taixu Mountain. It's hard to say there's nothing fishy about this. In the earthly immortal realm, everyone knows that the forces that destroyed the Fang clan were a three-party alliance, led by Fuinshan, which buried the entire Fang clan in one fell swoop. There were hundreds of thousands of Fang clan members, and only Fang Han and his guardians were there. He managed to escape with difficulty. Now, in the Zixuan realm, an unidentified emperor reveals the aura of the Fang clan's martial arts, and also takes action against these three forces. It is difficult for people not to think about it. Benedict. 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 The man in white put away the jade slip, with a deep expression on his face. He lightly clasped the armrest with his fingers, half opening and half closing his eyes, and said slowly, you mean, it is very possible that Fang Han is not the one who became the emperor in the Suanmo Star territory. In hand. But fell into the hands of another great emperor. This possibility cannot be ruled out. The middle-aged quasi-emperor said in a deep voice. It is too simple for a great emperor to imitate the martial arts aura. As long as Fang Han hands over some of the Fang clan's martial arts, a great emperor can learn it quickly. This is a strategic position. The benefits are that with a strong background, you can learn some basic magical powers and fully understand them with just one glance. And the power of using them may be even more superb than the person who created the skills. If so, things are complicated. The man in white whispered to himself. The great emperor of Fuiyun Mountain is not weak. Among all the great emperors, he is also the best. Even if he encounters an irresistible existence, he can at least persist for a while and not lose so miserably. But the result? He just lost. And he lost miserably. He didn't even last for an hour before he was nailed to death in the void. It can be seen from this that the great emperor who took action was so powerful. I am afraid that under the great emperor in the realm, it has reached the extreme. What is even more frightening is that the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain knew that he was outmatched, but still did not choose to escape. Why is this? Could it be that the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain has a bubble in his head? He knew that he could not beat him. Want to fight to the death? This is obviously impossible. If the Emperor of Fuiyun Mountain is not mentally confused, it must be that he cannot escape at all. And the person who can block the existence of a great emperor must also be a great emperor. In other words, there is a great emperor waiting for an opportunity. Even though the Fang clan has been wiped out, a little Fang Han can still involve two great emperors, which can't help but make people's hair stand on end. How did Fang Han do it? The man in white thought in his mind. Being in a different place, he asked himself that he might not be able to do this step. It was too terrifying. He had only been in the lower world for 10 days, and he had won over the two great emperors. Is it possible? He gave away his inheritance out? This is the only possibility. Only then can the two great emperors desperately fight against three huge forces. Even if they know that the other party has a trump card in the immortal world, they don't care. Holy Son, the inheritance in Fang Han's hands, could it be? The middle-aged quasi-emperor looked ugly. Obviously. He and his holy son thought of going together. He will never hand over his inheritance, it is everything to him. Without the inheritance, he will not even have the last chance to make a comeback. The man in white stood up, opened his eyes, and a ray of cold light flashed through him. He looked up and looked outside the chariot, and said decisively, "There must be secrets hidden in this that we don't know about." But the middle-aged quasi-emperor said helplessly, "The matter involves two great emperors. I am afraid that with our current strength, we are simply unable to fight against it. If the space channel is still there, not to mention the two great emperors. Even if 20 great emperors were standing in front of them, he would still dare to challenge them. After all, behind him stood the Yugzu Palace, and in the Yugzu Palace, there was a supreme true immortal. But now, the space passage is gone, and Yugzu Palace is in vain. If he and others really faced off against the two great emperors, the outcome would be extremely miserable. People dare to take action against the three major forces of Fuiyun Mountain, Reclusive Immortal Palace, and Taigzu Mountain. Why would they care about Yugzu Palace? Isn't there a Tianji Tower in this world? In the hand of the man in white, a jade slip rises, blooming with brilliance. The content inside appears in the void. This is another list. The 5 characters of the prodigy list of 10,000 races shine brightly. An omniscient being, he should know the whereabouts of Fang Han. The man in white said softly. If you rely on yourself and others to track down Fang Han's whereabouts, you may not have any clues hundreds or thousands of years later. Now, a ready opportunity comes to your door. If you leave it unused, it is obviously a brain. Not very easy to use. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 268. Tianyuan World. The deserted city. In an attic. 2 figures are sitting there, and 2 figures, an old man and a young man, are standing next to them. You have caused a lot of trouble during this time. Meng Qingzi spoke. There was a chessboard in front of him. A chess piece fell in his hand and a clear sound came out. Has the disturbance you caused become less? Dragon Emperor Aoxian, dressed in purple robes, embroidered with dragon patterns, graceful, exuding the aura of supremacy in his movements, he also held a chess piece in his hand. If this emperor's guess is correct, it will be you who takes action in the purple mysterious realm. No. Meng Qingzi shook his head and glanced at Fang Han next to him, with a half-smiling expression in the corners of his eyes. With the 2 great emperors present, Fang Han naturally had no place. Although he had the strength of the great emperors for a short time, he could not last long. Between the 2 real emperors, in front of the emperor, he could only stand aside. Oh! Ao Xian noticed Meng Qingzi's expression and also glanced at Fang Han next to him. He asked suspiciously, is it possible? Was he the one who took action? This young man. He has noticed it since just now. He came back with Meng Qingzi. His strength is not weak. He is already in the middle stage of the heavenly change realm, and his foundation is very solid. It seems that he will soon be in the late stage of the heavenly change realm. If placed among all races on the Tianjiao list, it can at least enter the top 10. The reason why I don't say the top 3 is because during this period, every force is constantly going to the Tianji Tower, Yeshenlin, and the strength of the various young masters of the monster clan. All are advancing by leaps and bounds. Every day, there are countless people who buy news from Tianji Tower. Especially Ye Chen, who leads the second place in the Tianjiao list. His strength is already in the late stage of Tianbian realm, which sounds a bit incredible. Logically speaking, the stronger the strength, the slower it should be. However, the Tianjiao of Tianyuan realm do the opposite. The further the realm is, the faster the strength grows. In the final analysis, it is the existence of Tianji Tower. In Tianji Tower, there is no news about anything. They can buy it, and even some quasi-emperors can't see the flaws in their own cultivation. But the poster of Tianji revealed it in a few words. With the guidance of the poster's seniors, and the accumulation of opportunities, they can't slow down even if they want to. For this reason, Ao Xian only said that it is possible for Fang Han to enter the top 10. But the top 3 is a bit difficult. The longer time passes and the longer Fang Han stays in his current state, he may be rejected by more and more people, leaving it behind until you can't even see their backs. He. Meng Qingzi smiled mysteriously, dropped a chess piece casually, and said, I can't say much more, but one thing I can tell you is that he has been to Tianji Tower. Oh! Ao Xian raised his eyebrows. His eyes fell on Fang Han and took a closer look. In this way, he could be sure. The great emperor who took action in Zixuan realm was most likely this young man. In the Tianji Tower, there are all good things. Is it difficult for a person to have the strength of a great emperor? In their opinion, it is indeed difficult. But in the eyes of the owner of the Tianji Tower, it may not be that difficult. After all, the method of becoming a saint is through luck. The whereabouts of, but it was spread from the mouth of the senior poster, and it is reasonable for a more mysterious technique to appear again. Next to him, Fang Han faced the eyes of the two great emperors. He was quite uncomfortable. Although he couldn't hear it, I don't know what they are talking about, but judging from their eyes, the topic should be about themselves. Interesting. Ao Xian muttered to himself, then turned his head, looked at Meng Qingzi unblinkingly with a pair of dark golden eyes, and asked in a deep voice. Although this person has unlimited potential, that shouldn't be the reason for you to keep him by your side. And you, Meng Qingzi, when did you become so generous? Helping a person who does not belong to this world to seek revenge on others. Do you want to know? Meng Qingzi joked. If you don't tell me, it doesn't matter if I go to Tianji Tower now. Ao Xian didn't take it seriously. The Dragon Clan's rich man has very little news in the world, so he can't afford it. But if I buy the information from the senior poster, it will be difficult for you to get a share of the pie. The emperor in the Tianyuan world is not one of you, Meng Cheng. Ao Xian Shen was there, twisting the chess pieces in his hand, and said. Not long ago, I had cooperated with Ling Xiao. If Fang Han has any benefits, it will have nothing to do with you. Ao Xian is not stupid. Look at Meng Qingzi, he takes Fang Han with him wherever he goes. You can guess at a glance that Fang Han has a big secret hidden in him, and the reason why Meng Qing did not kill Fang Han is probably because of him. There was nothing he could do against Fang Han. Moreover, he felt that this secret was extraordinary. Meng Qingzi couldn't afford the information from his senior poster, and he didn't want to kill Fang Han. He had no choice but to make this move. Cough. Meng Qingzi coughed dryly and said with a chuckle, "Fellow Taoist, you are joking. There is no big secret about Fang Han, he just holds a true immortal inheritance in his hand." What? There was a bang. Ao Xian stood up, breathing rapidly. He glanced at Fang Han without leaving a trace, stared at Meng Qingzi with his eyes, and said in a deep voice, "Are you sure that Fang Han has the inheritance of the true immortal in his hands?" The senior posters have already confirmed it, and everyone who comes down from the earthly immortal realm knows that before long, the inheritance of the true immortal will no longer be a secret. Meng Qingzi said happily. Have the senior posters confirmed it? Ao Xian glanced at Fang Han again. At this moment, he confirmed in his heart. If Meng Qingzi told him, he would not believe it to be honest, because Meng Qingzi's credibility is about zero, but if the senior poster speaks, it cannot be false. Even if it is true. Meng Qingzi was kicked in the head by a donkey, and he didn't dare to use the name of the senior poster to cheat. Look. Meng Qingzi raised his hand, pointed at a speeding yucha not far away, and said with a chuckle. People from the earthly immortal realm, aren't they here? Outside the deserted city. In the void? Yahu stopped. After a few breaths, a man wearing white clothes, spotless, with a clear face, eyebrows flying sideways into his temples, held a folding fan in his hand. He walked slowly. He came out. After taking a look at Dawang City, he stepped into Dawang City. Behind him, another stream of light flew over. This was a strange beast, thousands of feet long, exuding the aura of the Saint King. It was very Qiangsheng, several powerful figures above are standing. They are also from the Earth Immortal realm. Their faces are very arrogant, even if the space channel is broken. They still believe that it will be opened again, as long as the Earth Immortal realm and the Zixuan realm are reconnected, they can still overlook the two worlds' billions of living beings. It is precisely because of this mentality that they never put any force in their eyes. Wherever they go on a rampage. After all, in the earthly immortal world, they are all superior and have countless people complementing them, let alone in a mere Tianyuan world. When they came to the edge of Dawang City, their speed increased instead of slowing down, because they also saw the man in white. Everyone knew their purpose of coming to Dawang City. It was just for the mysterious Tianji building master. Thinking of this, they mobilizing the strange beast, it fell straight from the sky to where the Tianji tower was. It had not yet touched the formation. Suddenly, a big black hand came up from the air and tore the sky apart. The big hand filled the sky, carrying an emperor-level hand. The power was so powerful that it made countless people fall to their knees with a thud. Who? Someone yelled on the alien beast. Just uttering one word was crushed into a cloud of blood mist by this palm. A group of people who don't know whether to live or die. In the attic. Meng Qingzi retracted his palm with a cold expression. Is there a place where he can be so ostentatious in the sky above Dawang City? Don't talk about them. It's him and others. Isn't that one who came in from the city gate respectfully? Holding the sky. That is, shielding the aura of the whole body is a bit mysterious, but no one has ever been so arrogant. Although the senior poster has never had a ban in this regard. But after such a long time, this rule has been acquiesced by countless people. Meng Qingzi put his palms together in his sleeves, he had a few storage rings in his hands, and he felt a lot more comfortable. This time, it was not a loss. He helped the senior poster crush a few ants, and he also made a small fortune. It should be more than enough to buy a chance at Tianji Tower later. These people who came from the earthly immortal realm are not weak in power behind them. Even their storage rings have a lot of good things. Sure enough. They still rob others, yes. The fastest way to make money. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 269. Great Emperor. Who was that person just now? He actually dared to run rampant above Dawang City. Isn't this looking for death? Maybe he's from the Zixuan realm. Yes, there is no one in the Tianyuan world who is so blind. I didn't expect that there would be an emperor sitting in the great desert city. It was simply unimaginable. In the deserted city, countless people looked at the sky and talked about it. The news of the fusion of the two worlds has spread throughout the Tianyuan world and the Zixuan world. After the initial shock, everyone could only accept this reality. It is different from Zixuan realm. Almost every cultivator in the Tianyuan world has confirmed this in their hearts. The person who promoted the integration of the two worlds is definitely the owner of Tianji. Because, except for the senior poster, they couldn't think of anyone else who could do this. As for the emperor who took action just now, they were just shocked for a moment. After all, the senior poster had taken action once before, and the person who took action this time had a completely different aura. Maybe it was the old monster, I couldn't tell. After all, if you are in the deserted city and observe carefully, the great sage can be seen often, and occasionally the quasi-emperor can be seen. As for the great emperor, be more careful. There's still some chance. Great Emperor. The man in white held a folding fan in his hand, glanced at the void, his pupils shrank, and he was secretly awe-inspiring. Just now, outside Dawang City. For a moment, he wanted to fly in directly. After all, in the earthly immortal realm, their Yugzu Palace, although they are not a force that has been passed down for a long time, their reputation is still not low because of a true immortal. No matter where they go, all the forces will treat them as guests. The masters of the major forces will personally go out to welcome 30,000 people. Here. Those are all basic operations. But in Dawang City, all the benefits in the past are not available. This makes them somewhat psychologically unbalanced. But the moment he wanted to let his men fly in directly, a trace of uneasiness surged in his heart. It was wonderful, so he showed up and led the team in through the city gate. Just because of this, he saved everyone's lives. The lower world is far more dangerous than we think. Behind the man in white, the middle-aged quasi-emperor said with emotion. How long has it been? Just over a month, not even 2 months. First, 3 forces in Fuiyun Mountain were destroyed, and now another famous force in the earthly immortal world was killed. Calculate carefully. In a short period of time, there have been 4 forces that not only failed to gain anything, but also lost a lot. In addition, some other people, because of their arrogance, have provoked the Zixuan realm. Or people from the Tianyuan world were secretly killed. I'm afraid a lot of people have died in the earthly immortal world now. Not every force has no temper. A group of people came to the door and told them to bow their heads and surrender. Surrender. Not to mention that there is no space channel in the earthly immortal world now. Even the space channel is still there. There are some forces who dare to fight with them. They have been passed down for countless years. Which force has no temper and backbone? I hope Master can restore the space channel as soon as possible. The man in white sighed with emotion. There is no support from the forces behind him. No one can guarantee how long they can survive alone. In this period of time, more than 10 emperors have jumped out of the two worlds together. This kind of power cannot be ignored in the earthly immortal world. Holy Sun, Tianji Tower has arrived. The middle-aged quasi-emperor reminded. The man in white nodded and said, let's go in and have a look. After that, he took the first step and stepped into the Tianji Tower. Far away. In the attic. Meng Qingzi and Ao Xian sat opposite each other. They looked at the man in white who stepped into Tianji Tower, their eyes deep and calm. Based on the reputation of the senior poster. If these people don't know the existence of Tianji Tower, then they are evil. I never thought that people in the earthly immortal realm would react so quickly. Meng Qingzi was a little emotional. He looked away, lost interest in playing chess, and threw the chess pieces back casually. They are from Yugzu Palace. Fang Han spoke at this time. Yugzu Palace. Ao Xian raised his brows, glanced at Fang Han, and said disdainfully, if heaven had not given birth to this emperor, the world would be like a long night. It's just a small Yugzu Palace, it can be destroyed with the flip of a palm. The ancestor of Yugzu Palace is a true immortal. Fang Han pursed his lips and said again. Well. Ao Xian's expression froze, he put his hands on his neck and said, I think I am invincible in the Tianyuan world. It would be fine if Yugzu Palace doesn't come to provoke me. If they dare to block the emperor's way forward, I will let him hang all the Tian longswords in Yugzu Palace. Cough. Meng Qingzi coughed lightly and said, don't you Dragon Clan not use swords very much? I would like to say this, okay. Ao Xian squinted from the corners of his eyes. Can. Meng Qingzi showed a look of care for the mentally retarded, nodded and said. Later he will go to Tianji Tower to buy information. He has to count on Ao Xian. Who gave him more money? Without Ao Xian, counting on him like Meng Qing is not very reliable, because he was too poor. As for counting on Ling Xiao, he didn't dare to think about it. As soon as the two met, they would probably take action as soon as possible. It was impossible to sit together and buy information. More importantly, he didn't guess if I'm wrong, Ling Xiao should be poorer than him, because the holy land of shaking light is gone, Ling Xiao is alone, and he doesn't have the character to grab good things when he sees them. If he can get rich, there will be ghosts. The inheritance of a true immortal is of extraordinary value. According to my estimation, I am afraid that at least one item of the same realm is needed. Can your Dragon Clan afford it? Meng Qingzi asked thoughtfully. What's the meaning? Ao Xian looked strange. He glanced at Meng Qingzi and asked in confusion, what do you mean, can our Dragon Clan take it out? And you? You, the Nine Nether Demon sect, are just planning to get nothing. Fellow Taoist Ao Xian, you should understand that our Juyu Demon sect is too poor, and I only have a great sense of righteousness left. If I want to buy a true immortal inheritance, I am afraid that. Meng Qingzi had a wry smile on his face, his expression didn't seem to be fake, and he said helplessly, I'm afraid I have more than enough intentions but not enough strength. Before he finished speaking, he changed his tone, looked at Fang Han, and said seemingly unintentionally, little friend Fang Han, he has a lot of treasures. He even killed a great emperor before, so he has a lot of good things in his hands. You can join in. After all, you don't want to see the inheritance left by your ancestors fall into the hands of outsiders. How about this, you take out all the things you got before, and after you buy the inheritance left by your ancestors from the senior poster, I will help you get the inheritance. And I can also help you to stop other people from snooping on the inheritance of the true immortal. Fang Han. This is to buy an opportunity. Are you even plotting against a junior like yourself? Even Ao Xian next to him didn't look right at the moment. The Nine Nether Demon sect is such a large sect and has been passed down for millions of years. It is impossible that it doesn't even have this bit of background. If my Dragon Clan bought the true immortal inheritance, why would I bring you two with me? Ao Xian said lightly. Cough. Meng Qingzi coughed again and said softly, I am not penniless. How about I give you 10 million high-quality spiritual stones? 10 million top-quality spiritual stones, are you sending a beggar away? Ao Xian squinted from the corners of his eyes. True immortal inheritances are all priceless. Just now, Menkingzi said it right. If you buy this inheritance from the senior poster, you will get a true immortal item at least, and it may be even higher. A mere 10 million top quality spiritual stones, it's the same as if they were released. There are no true immortal items among the Dragon Clan. If you buy this opportunity, the Dragon Clan may be seriously injured, and no one can guarantee that this inheritance will be realized in this world. Is there anyone else who wants to take advantage of this? Especially you, Menkingzi. If you don't get rid of anything, it will be difficult for me to believe your sincerity. Ao Xian said happily. I really can't get it out of my body. Menkingzi looked bitter. The words are not finished yet. Fang Han spoke quietly. The junior has not had time to thank the senior. Previously, he killed an emperor in Fuyun Mountain and the senior took action. Afterwards, the senior only got an imperial weapon and the soul of the emperor. It really makes the junior feel bad. As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere in the attic began to become weird. Ao Xian and Menkingzi looked at each other. Menkingzi gritted his teeth angrily, but he had no choice. That was the opportunity when he planned to buy the whereabouts of the divine gold, but now he was given the opportunity by Fang Han. It exploded. If it weren't for the jade pendant in Fang Han's hand, he would have gone berserk at the moment. On the side, Fang Han was also helpless. Although he didn't want to share the inheritance left by his ancestors with others, but at the moment an unborn inheritance means nothing. In order to get the inheritance in his hands, he can no longer care too much. With the help of the jade pendant, he can temporarily obtain the peak strength of the emperor. If he competes with a group of emperors on the same stage, he may not be able to grab what his ancestor left behind. Things. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 270. Tianji Tower. A light blue light curtain floated in front of Li Yun. Two lists appeared above. These two lists all have a name. That is, stunning list. He has already had an idea for this list. After all, he himself is also very curious about how many beauties there are in the world of fantasy, especially the fantasy world. He randomly pulled out a woman who was an accomplished practitioner. In the original world, it is not an exaggeration to say that he looks like an immortal, especially with the blessing of cultivation. He can fully bear the words of banishing an immortal to the dust. As a qualified LSP. If Li Yun hadn't come to Tianji Tower during this period, so many people would have been released long ago. The only thing that gave him a headache was aesthetics. According to the aesthetics of the human race, a group of monsters or other races will almost never be on the list, because the monsters always like to have some characteristics of their own race. Even if they change into a human appearance, their best features will still be retained. Especially Ao Xian. After becoming emperor, he always carries a huge dragon head wherever he goes. He was afraid that people would not know that he was the dragon emperor. Such an approach may be very standard and impressive among the dragon clan. But among humans, it's enough to stop a child from crying. In addition, what's more important is that the appearance of many people is not static. Changing one's appearance in the fantasy world is as simple as eating and drinking. This way, you need to think carefully about this list. I am a human being myself, so using human aesthetics should be a no-brainer. Li Yun murmured in his heart. As the owner of Tianji Building, there is no need to think about the aesthetics of the demon race. Human race is a natural Taoist body. Most races will choose the human race appearance when walking around in the outside world. In the future, if the changes are more thorough, it is still possible to become a demon race. List. For example, nine-tailed fox. It's okay to wear a tail, right? Appearances that change the day after tomorrow cannot be included in the list. Li Yun rubbed his chin with his fingers. At this point, it also needs to be restricted. Everyone has a love for beauty. If this list were released and started a plastic surgery craze in the whole world, the picture would not look good. Appearance, strength, and potential, these three must also be considered. Li Yun pondered. The list is for beauty, not for vases. If you are good looking but have no strength, in the eyes of a group of practitioners, you are just a vase. It has no value. Even because you are on the list, you will be criticized by some evil people. Xiu stares at. The old monster and the young genius must be separated. Li Yun said to himself. When thinking about various restrictions and conditions in my mind. Outside the Tianji building, two figures walked in. The leader. He was a man in white clothes, with fluttering robes, sword-shaped eyebrows and starry eyes. He had an aura of being out of the world. He had a graceful demeanor and held a folding fan. When he saw Li Yun, he slightly cupped his hands. Yang Jian from Yugzu Palace has met the senior poster. Oh! Hearing the sound, Li Yun raised his head, waved his hand to disperse the light curtain in front of him, and looked at the person who came, with a glimmer of eyes flashing in his eyes. The name Yang Jian. In his original world, it was like thunder. True Lord Qingyuan Miodeo. There is another name, that is, the god of war of the three realms. He wanted to ask if the master Yang Jian in front of him was the real person Yuding, but after reading his identity information, he gave up the idea. It was obvious that this Yang Jian was not the real person. That's Yang Jian. This man has no third eye, no three-pointed two-edged sword, and no roaring dog. As for the 1200 grass-headed gods, don't even think about it. Sit down. Li Yun pointed to the chair next to him and said softly. He was not Yang Jian in the original world, so he lost a bit of interest. In the final analysis, the same name is a bit exaggerated, and it was just that he had the same name. The forces behind him also followed suit. No matter whether you think about it or not, it won't work. Thank you, senior. Yang Jian cupped his hands. When he sat down, he turned around and glanced at the quasi-emperor behind him. The latter shook his head slightly, with a hint of helplessness in his eyes. No need to look, he is just a quasi-emperor, there is nothing you can see in the Tianji Tower. Li Yun said casually. Well. The middle-aged quasi-emperor looked extremely embarrassed. He cupped his hands and said, Juniors may have offended me, please don't blame me, seniors. As a person who came down from the earthly immortal realm, this was the first time he heard the reputation of Tianji Tower. Especially, the outside world spread rumors that the Tianji Tower was magical, and they didn't believe it in their hearts. When they came here today, they inevitably wanted to find out the details, but they were pointed out by the direct owner of the building in front of them. At this moment, he was so embarrassed that he almost dug out the 3 bedrooms and 1 living room. I'm not strict in discipline, senior, don't take it to heart. Yang Jian pondered for a moment, turned his palm, and a piece of jade appeared, exuding dazzling light. He handed it to Li Yun and said with an apologetic smile. This is my next thought. I should treat it as an apology. I also ask you, senior, to accept it? Ah. Li Yun chuckled and accepted the jade. Don't give up the great saint-level items for free. After he put away the jade, he took another look at Yang Jian. A quasi-emperor was actually not a protector, but the identities of his subordinates appeared. From this, we can see the strong foundation of Yugzu Palace. After all, no holy son would dare to use the word lax discipline to his protector. Keep some careful tips in the Tianji Tower. Even if you, Taoist Zigzu of Yugzu Palace, are here, you must not act recklessly. Taoist Zigzu. Yang Jian was shocked. This is the name of their ancestor. Previous years. These 4 words are famous in the immortal world. After he became the supreme immortal, he single-handedly created Yugzu Palace. Here we are today. No one in the earthly immortal world dares to mention these 4 words. Although Yugzu Palace was founded only a few 100,000 years ago and has 3 generations of disciples. If you don't count the peripheral disciples, there are only a few hundred, but even so, no one dares to underestimate him. Because the route that Yugzu Palace takes is different from other sections. They are an elite route. Generally, they do not recruit disciples on a large scale. After 100,000 years, it is rare for someone to gain a few disciples, but those who can be admitted to the Yugzu Palace are all outstanding talents of the moment, and they can be pulled out at random. All can possess the cultivation level of a great sage. Coupled with the fact that there is a supreme true immortal sitting behind him, Yugzu Palace has already begun to rush towards the transcendent power. They will be given tens of millions of years to develop. 3 words, Yugzu Palace. In the immortal world, you can definitely become a giant. Senior, have you been to the earthly immortal realm before? Yang Jian asked tentatively. Never. Li Yun shook his head and Feng Qingyun said calmly, as far as I am concerned, the earthly immortal realm is no different from the Tianyuan realm. Why should I go there? No different. Yang Jian's eyes flickered, he shook his folding fan slightly, and fell into deep thought. Logically speaking, the earthly immortal realm surpasses the Zixuan realm and the Tianyuan realm by a lot. The difference between them is only the difference between true immortals, but it is a world of difference. Don't underestimate this realm. It is such a big realm. The latter can destroy the entire world of the former without any effort. In the eyes of the earthly immortal world, the 2 realms of Zixuan and Tianyuan are their little brothers. But such a huge gap, but in the eyes of the seniors, there is no difference. This is worth pondering. People who can say such things must at least have the ability to easily destroy the immortal world with one palm. In this way, every world will be destroyed. They're all exactly the same. It's all just a slap in the face. How big of a difference can there be? Thinking of this, Yang Jian's face became more respectful. There was no need to brag for someone who was much more tyrannical than him, and there was no need to brag in front of a junior like him. A strong person also wants to save face. If you exaggerate too much, you will not be able to get it back, and you will lose face in the future. Then your reputation will be over. According to the reputation of Tianji Tower, this senior owner is obviously not someone who talks nonsense. Don't hide it from seniors. Yang Jian calmed down, cupped his hands and said, this junior is here because I have something I want to ask my senior for advice. You want to know, is it me who is responsible for the displacement of the Zixuan realm and the rupture of the space channel? Li Yun glanced at Yang Jian's thoughts and said eloquently. Good. Yang Jian nodded. In the Tianyuan world, all living beings are almost certain that the person who took action is the master of Tianji. This news is no longer a secret. But he still wants to ask. One Piece, quasi-emperor level items. Li Yun pouted. Is it necessary to inquire about a secret that is not a secret? Everyone in the Tianyuan world has guessed it, and only the creatures in the earthly immortal world will spend money to buy information. If the people in the Tianyuan world know this, he would definitely look at them like fools. Originally, he wanted to buy a great saint level item. But seeing that Yang Jian was very wealthy, he temporarily added a price tag. Anyway, he also spent a lot of effort to combine two. The world has merged together. Although every living being in the Tianyuan world knows this news, most of it is just speculation. This kind of final news cannot be sold cheaply.